it's your very first Sunday with us, we want you to know that you are welcome here. We know that every Sunday there are folks among us who have never been in a Unitarian Universalist church before in their lives. And what they are seeking is exactly what we are seeking: a community of like-minded folks, a place to belong, a place to speak and to be heard, a place to feel, and a place to give back in service. So welcome to church this morning. It's great to be with all of you.
Good morning. If you would turn to your gray hymnal to number 466, we will do the responsive reading. I will read the first part, and then you will respond with the parts in italics. Number 466 in the gray hymnal. Let religion be to us life and joy. Let religion be to us a dissatisfaction with things that are, which bids us serve more eagerly the true and right.
Let it be a sorrow that opens for us a way of sympathy, understanding, and service to suffering humanity.
Let religion be to us the wonder and lure of that which is only partly known and understood. Let religion be to us security and serenity because of its truth and beauty, and because of the endearing worth and power of the loyalties which it engenders.
Let it be to us hope and purpose, and the discovery of opportunities to express our best through daily tasks.
Religion uniting us with all that is admirable in human beings everywhere.
Holding before our eyes the prospect of a better life for humankind, which each may want to take action.
So since we're talking about shared ministry this morning, I thought I'd offer a few words from some of my experience. When I was younger, I thought I was going to be in theater. I hadn't really built a dream around that. That's just what I figured. It's what I had been doing and what took me to and through college. Curiosity is the path that led me there, and it's the one that brought me here. It is the combination of willingness to be vulnerable, to play at different parts, to show up on time, and sometimes to read the lines I'm expected to say. The one thing that's never changed, is my curiosity about what makes people who they are. From that curiosity, I am driven to connect. In seminary, the majority of my class spoke about hearing the call to ministry as a young child and ignoring it for decades. And while I think it makes a lot of sense that I'm here, that pieces I was born with and what the path has taught me has set me up well for ministry, I don't know that I ever got the call. I just kept following the breadcrumbs. And a trust in the path developed, so that I worried less about where it led, just kept putting one foot in front of the other. Curiosity brought me back here, to you, in a way that I never could have imagined.
So I invite you to settle in for a conversation. And I'll tell you a little bit about how this came about. So Reverend Shuba and I have been working together now for 2 years, and it has been a true joy for me as the new minister here for the last 2 years to work with someone who is invested in the congregation and also working in the community. I'd had experiences working with other community ministers and really value community ministry, but to have such a collegial relationship with Elizabeth has been a true joy to my ministry. So when she was doing a service here late in the service, late in the year when ministers are a little bit, the barrel is pretty low with the sermons, I said, well, how about I join you and we'll talk to the congregation a little bit about what it's like to work as colleagues, me in the parish setting and Elizabeth in the community setting. And then we took it one step further and said, well, let's hear what Marian has to say about that as well and give her some questions to answer. So what we've done is we've each written 3 questions. We have not seen the questions, so I don't know the questions that are going to be asked of me, and Elizabeth doesn't know the questions that are going to be asked of her. And we'll take them one at a time, and we'll just answer them off the cuff and see where the conversation takes us.
Oh, I'm so glad you wrote things down. I thought you were going to do this truly off the cuff.
No, I wrote them down. So my first question actually taps into something that you had mentioned in your little reflection. How is your call to ministry best satisfied in your community work? How is your call to ministry best satisfied in your community work?
I think one of the things as a lifelong UU that I treasure is that it's not a fixed place on a path, that it is remaining on the path and remaining on the path with others. So I think why I'm so fed in my call in the community is engaging with diversity of thought and experience helps me to ground more firmly in my call and my worldview, and helps me to better understand the other. For those of you who don't know, I work as a staff chaplain in palliative care and oncology, and cancer and death and dying, they don't care who you voted for or who you love or any of those sorts of things. And so I think it's that, and it's also an opportunity for people who are also seeking to bring them back to UUCL or to introduce them to Unitarian Universalism. When I look at the adorable AI-generated picture of us on the program, I noticed that you look like you're dressed for almost any job, and I look like an Episcopal priest, which is interesting if you understand our spirituality locations, because, anyway. I know why I choose to present the way I do as a community minister, which I'll be happy to share, and I'm curious about your choice and if any of it is informed by working in the parish.
I love that image. I've been laughing all week about it. So I think the short answer is absolutely yes. And it's so interesting within Unitarian Universalism what the minister wears. And there are endless collegial conversations, as you know, about what to wear, when, and how. Men get away with wearing far less variety than women are expected to. So I think part of it is, for me personally, I'll just give you a little bit of history. I was one of those ministers that was kind of trained in the late, actually kind of mid to late 90s. And at that time, there was a real movement in Unitarian Universalism to have a little bit more, not necessarily high church, but to robe more, to bring a little more scripture into the services, to look at other religious texts, those kinds of things. And so I started off my career robing every Sunday. So black robe, stole. I think it probably was because I was also 30 and a little bit frightened. And the black robe was fairly protective, and the stole marked me as a minister. After a few years of that, I think I was more comfortable, and what I realized was that in the congregation I was serving, the black robe was a barrier. It just brought up way too much baggage for most of the congregation. Some folks were fine with it, and some were not. And so then I started wearing it less. You know, you wear it on Christmas Eve, you wear it on Easter, not much, wear it for funerals. And what happened in that congregation was the congregation took a collective sigh of relief that the minister had stopped looking like a minister. though, to be honest, I felt like I had lost something. And it was more difficult for me to be a minister out in the community because I was not expected to look like a minister in my own congregation. Fast forward to the next church, very formal church, again tried the robe, had the exact same experience, going from a very informal church to a very formal church. Robe was a barrier. And so when I got here, I just never tried it. I was like, it's a barrier. You know, I don't need to put anything between me and the congregation that's going to make them feel uncomfortable. I think it's a different world when we're out among colleagues. I think it's a different world when we have to be with a politician, or we're on stage, or we're bringing a message out there. And I think the growth for Unitarian Universalist congregations is to think less about what their minister is wearing, but why their minister is wearing what they're wearing.
You touched on all the points I was going to add as a community minister, which is symbolism. I think especially being a community minister in a very conservative county, my hope is that it makes church accessible to those who have been told it's not for them, to see somebody who looks like me, who's also collared or stoled. And so for me, it's about building. And I asked the question because it's been asked of me, and the answer, not knowing what Howard's response was about the fact that I am a small woman, and there is a sense of authority that would be given to a larger cis white man than I might have naturally. And so part of it is asserting my pastoral authority.
Thank you both. And to Elizabeth for the question. That was actually going to be one of mine as well, about the stole. So there you go. And I have more than 3 questions because I don't know what you guys are going to ask one another, and I want to thank my Soul Matters group for helping me come up with some. So I'll throw this one to Elizabeth. Parish ministry seems obvious, but what exactly is community ministry, and what does it mean to be affiliated with UUCL? How are you representing us out in the community? Just whatever you feel is important for us to know.
In 1991, the UUA by pathway, so that's a UU association by pathway of the MFC, which is the Ministerial Fellowship Committee, welcome to UU Letter Soup, determined that community ministry could be supported as a pathway to full fellowship. And with that, elevated the work outside of congregational walls, recognizing that it is just as vital to have an outward-facing ministry. And while my first elements of engaging with the world are theater, I'm much more comfortable and find it much more fulfilling to be engaging with the other in a smaller exchange, as opposed to sort of staying way up there and offering what I believe is wisdom, which I think there's a place for that. It just isn't necessarily my comfort. I think I tend to be much more of an observer of humanity, and then perhaps reflect my observations back to the people that I engage with, which is kind of, I hope, how my sermons come across. What is the work of community ministry in our movement, especially in the world as we are experiencing it, is, and this is kind of dovetailing into one of my questions for Reverend Howard as well, is that the expectations of congregations to meet all of the marks of hit all of the needs for a congregation, for one minister, it's shifting. And I think we also understand differently what it takes to show up in this way. And so I think collegiality has become more important. And we all know that we have gifts. And what does it look like to marry two people's gifts in order to support a congregation and our movement as best as we possibly can. And the other part of it is ministry can be very lonely. It's not dissimilar to working in healthcare. I can't go home and tell my loved one about the experiences of my job because HIPAA, and I would traumatize them. So having someone that knows where you are working and what your experiences are in ministry is just absolutely a gift. Did I answer the question? I feel like I went down a rabbit hole.
My second question just leads on to what you've been talking about. As a community minister, what surprises you most in a parish setting? As a community minister, what surprises you most in a parish setting?
The amount of effort it goes into administration, which is, I mean, I've so welcomed Howard's gifts while he has been here to see the ways in which I feel elevated in my role here, and I can only assume that the rest of staff does too, because there's sort of a delineation of role and there is a value in staff. So I think it's really interesting when I met the Ministerial Fellowship Committee and I was welcomed into fellowship, you have to be able to speak well on seven different competencies, and one of them is administration. And my spouse and I had owned a record and clothing business for 20 years, and they were like, "Oh, you've got admin," but I wouldn't want to do it, and so I think I'm grateful for those who are fed or at least are talented in it. I think the surprise is we learn more about how we're perceived over time. It's taken me longer to feel like the congregation has an understanding of my role than I thought it would. That is a surprise to me. I was signed my first agreement 6 years ago. I think that feels right. But was serving as a candidate in formation in ministry for 8 years. And I think I've tried really hard to talk about what it is that I do and what it is that I am not. And I think the surprise is it's taken longer than I thought it would. So I have been really excited to have this conversation for about that long. In one of our first collegial conversations, you shared that you were drawn to UUCL because we have an affiliated community minister. And you've touched a little bit on what the attraction of that was. I'm wondering, similarly, have there been surprises, or do you want to highlight more about what that attraction was?
I think I was just looking for any help I could get. It'll be no surprise to the congregation that when I arrived at your doorstep, you were, dispirited is probably the best word. And so I was interested to know who in the congregation and who in its system really had both a good analysis of what was going on and also the real interest in staying and helping to make things better and to make things more stable. And so to come in and to already have a colleague in place was lovely, because in some ways you have the backstory of the congregation, but you also care deeply for them, and that was what I was looking to match. Because I think that all ministry at the heart of it is about heart. It's about relationship. There are going to be conflicts in any community, but if the leaders are coming at leadership with heart, if the desire is to know and to love the people, then any small errors can be forgiven. Any missteps can be corrected. And so my assumption was that I was just going to come in here and love this group of people because they were clearly lovable. And to find someone who was already here, who already loved them, and who spoke a bit of the same language that I did, was such a boon. I was so excited. And I remember how surprised you were when I kind of early on that fall called you up and said, can we get together for lunch? And by the way, I'll come to the hospital because I know your schedule is tighter than mine. And you must have shrieked or something on the phone because I was like, oh, this is unusual for her. And I did. I just punched in the GPS where your hospital was, and I went over and I found the visitors parking lot, and I went in and I found the cafeteria, and there you were, and we had lunch together. And I realized only in that moment how much that meant to you as well. That I, as the new parish minister, would recognize that you were already in the system, already providing care and value, and that I would come to you to learn a bit from you just how you loved the people so that I could do the same thing.
Definitely made a world of difference. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so the last question went to Elizabeth, so this one to Reverend Howard. If you could change one thing about parish ministry within the UUA system, what would you change?
So I have a flip answer, and I'm trying to decide whether I want to use that one or not. I mean, if I could change one thing, it would be email. I would just abolish it. I would get rid of it totally. I think email has been the single thing that has made ministry hardest for me in my career, and I don't think I'm alone with other folks. And let me just say a bit more, because it's not just email, it's communication. But email has a particular way of communicating that is really harmful to ministry. And the thing is that when you write it, we've all done this, you know, we're sitting at our computer, it's about bedtime, it's 10 o'clock at night, and we think, oh, I just got to get that one email out to somebody. We sit down and we fire off the email and we hit send. Well, what do we think? We think in our minds, oh, that person has received it, they've heard me, and they're working on a thoughtful reply. Well, usually not the case. And in fact, 3 or 4 days could go by before that email floats to the top or is something that I can answer. But people think that they are communicating through email, and what they are usually doing is making requests. And so a minister's experience is just a constant bombardment of these requests. Many of them very valid, many of them very helpful, many of them absolutely part of what goes into running a church, is the cumulative effect of 40 requests coming in when you open the computer after 2 days off. So that's why I say email, because what I think congregations need to learn to do a little bit more is actually talk to each other. That very often an in-person meeting is the way to solve something. Zoom has helped a little bit because you can at least see the folks, but it's hard to read a Zoom room as well. You don't really know how people are interacting unless you're sitting in a space with them. And I think in some ways we're still coming out of some habits that we formed during the pandemic that we needed to have, but that are not serving us very well anymore. The other magic invention that is just there for the using is, it's called the telephone. And it's amazing how much you can get about someone else and what kind of a conversation you can have with someone else when you call them up. So oftentimes there'll be you know how this goes with the reply all on email. You'll have 13 emails that you went through, and then I'm to the point of like, I just gotta call this person. You know, this conversation has been taken to its limit by this electronic device. What is needed is a human being speaking to another human being. So if I could change anything in parish ministry, it would be email. I want to shift our focus just a little bit because you, Elizabeth, you stand with a foot in two places, a foot here and a foot out in the community. But there's an aspect of the community that we've not talked about yet, and I'm interested and curious about your thoughts. What are your hopes for UUCL's relationship with other houses of worship in Lancaster? What are your hopes for UUCL's relationship with other houses of worship in Lancaster?
We talked a little bit about this at our Friday night workshop on risk assessment. I think there may be the way that it lives now, that sort of relationship is beholden to clergy. And I think relationship between houses of worship need to be had and built by the people who live in those houses of worship, not just the minister. So my hope is that we are creative as a community about the ways in which we engage with the other. Many of you know that I responded to the clergy call to Minneapolis in January, and what I loved about that was that religious leaders set down the things that they didn't agree on in order to pick up what they did agree on, which were the significant shifts in our country. And I think that's sort of the nexus. And it doesn't have to be professionally led. I think it needs to be led by people who center their engagement with the other in a place of love, which is our value as UUs. So I think everybody who's sitting here and everybody who watches this should feel empowered to build in the same way. And I do not live in a world where relationships are transactional. I think that they should all be offered irrespective of a desire for reciprocity. I think sometimes it can be scary to initiate relationship because you don't know what's going to happen. But if we do nothing, nothing will change. And I think one of the things that Reverend Howard said on Friday was that sometimes UUs can believe that we are the only progressive liberal minds in the county, and that just simply isn't true. So what are the ways in which we can meet the other so that we can bring Lancaster back to a place of center and a place of centering and love? That's my hope. My turn. My question, my last question is, and I think I'd like to hear from both Marian and Reverend Howard. What is your understanding of your responsibility in relationship to your affiliated community minister?
I think it's best when it's a partnership. And I think that structurally, we're both ministers on equal par. I consider you to be just as valid a minister as anyone else who's my colleague. And so I think in the particular role here, I would say is to constantly make a space for you, constantly offer you the pulpit, constantly check in with you, those kinds of things. And also to be willing to go with you into the community, especially for things that you are working on there. And as the relationship builds between a parish minister and a community minister, each will find themselves doing things in the other realm. So it's not a lopsided relationship.
Okay. So this one's for Elizabeth. What are ways in which our congregation can better support your work as a community minister? What can we do now that we understand it a little better?
I think it comes back to curiosity. I think I'm hopeful hearing from Reverend Howard that there is the org structure internally to the church, and then I'm kind of an offshoot in the same from the same position, having one foot as a member affiliated minister and one foot sort of outside as a representation of this community. My hope is that you do feel that you see my ministry not as something that is just about giving, but that it is relational. I'm thinking back to what are the ways in which, and it's part of my affiliate agreement as well, what are the ways in which you all can help serve me so that I can be empowered to go out and do what I do in the world? Would you like to join me? Would you like me to talk more about what I'm doing? My desire is not to be rogue, but to be a conduit of our values out into the world. So I think I invite you all to see me as a relationship. One of the things that we didn't touch on that deals with collegiality is that if anybody comes to me for a right to serve as rites of passage, which are weddings, funerals, dedications, those sorts of things, or if anybody comes to me for pastoral care support, I don't say yes or no in a vacuum. I bring all of that back to Reverend Howard, and we make sure that he understands that there are needs and that I am operating in collegial with him. And we get to decide the things that we do and do not necessarily want to do, and see if we can meet the needs. So I think this Sunday felt very important to me for you all to have a deeper, hopefully richer understanding of my vision and also what I need. What would it look like if I chose to go to the detention center in New Jersey and serve as part of our congregation? That's a seed that's sort of germinating in my spirit currently.
Thank you both for this conversation. It's been great. I love it that we didn't know the questions beforehand, because I think we got answers that were really at the heart of the matter. And thank you all for observing the conversation. Of course, you probably have as many questions as we asked or more. Just know that we're in relationship with you and that there will be plenty of time to answer those questions. Go ahead, Alan.
Is this okay? This is an original piece called, and I'm saying people have asked me to say, but I play when I do these things. So it's an original piece called Two Words, Light-Hearted.
I would like to invite Amber Barnes to come forward at this time and join me at the podium. This is the time in our service when we will pass the plate and accept your offerings. You may also go on our website to make a donation online. And 50% of the offering will be shared this month with LGBT Central PA, and Amber is here as a representative. And while the ushers come forward and pass the plates, Amber is going to share with us for a few minutes a little bit about LGBT Center at Central PA.
Thank you all for having me this morning and giving me the opportunity to talk a little bit about the work that we do at the LGBT Center of Central PA. I'm Amber Barnes, I'm the director, my pronouns are she, her, and much like Reverend Shuba, the heart of what we do is about building community and connection at the center. I like to share a little bit about snapshots of afternoons that we have. So we're open Monday through Friday and weekends, and we are a drop-in center. We provide food, we have a food pantry, showers, a housing program. Last year we housed over 32 people, whether that was through emergency housing or our year-long transitional housing. We have multiple programs. Our Common Rose Youth Program is also here in Lancaster. But one of the things I'd like to share is, so last week, 3 people came into the center, 2 of which were new to us. It was their first time at the center. And they said they'd been wanting to come in for a while and finally had a bit of time to check things out. And another was a participant that we hadn't seen in a very long time. And a woman of trans experience had just moved back to the area from spending time in Florida with family and was in need of support. So everyone kind of came in, they got food, they talked about joining some programs. We did some intake and some case management. And what had happened through their time is that they shared information with one another and exchanged phone numbers. And by the end of it, the one person was saying, well, if you need a ride somewhere, I'm happy to help you, let me know. And for me, that was the core of what we do, creating a safe space for people to be authentically themselves and know that they are loved and welcome, but also to build that connection with one another. And knowing that they are now not alone in wherever their journey takes them. So thank you all so much for your kindness and your generosity. I'll be hanging out for coffee hour if you have more questions. If you'd like to learn more about the center, I'll have some brochures. And we just really appreciate any support that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. We're glad that you're here and glad for the work that you do. We come to a thoughtful, prayerful time in our service, a time if you have come to this congregation with some great joy on your heart. I invite you to come up the center aisle and to press that joy, being it a birthday or an anniversary, a new grandchild, press that joy into a stone or a tile and leave it in the sand bowl and return to your seat by the side aisle. Likewise, if this has been a rough week or if there is a sorrow that you have, a death, a loss, something that you are carrying that is very heavy, come forward and press that into the stone as well. And we as a gathered congregation will share together our joys and our sorrows. Please come forward. I invite you to sit with this gathered congregation in a moment or two of silence, and then I'll offer a prayer. Spirit of life, we know that there is much work to do in this world. We also know that most of that work is very good work. It is simply what needs to be done in whatever situation we find ourselves. There's work that pays us and allows us to have a home and food and a car. There's work that enlivens us and brings out our creativity, pathway to a career or some task that gives us joy over and over. There is also work that does not fulfill us, work that fills us with dread or makes us uncomfortable or stretches us further than we would like to be stretched. We thank you for the work in all of its various forms, but more than the work, we thank you for the companions in the work. It's when we can do something with another human being, someone who shares our vision, someone who has a similar interest to ours, someone who is simply willing to roll up their sleeves and get in there and do the thing that needs to be done. What a joy. We thank you for companions in ministry, because we are all in ministry, whether we are ordained ministers or lay people. This world and this life of ours needs so much ministering. There is a hurting world just beyond these doors, and there is so much that each of us might do in our small and local way. Nothing flashy, nothing big, persistent, consistent, with love. Thank you for companions in the work. Thank you for the opportunities we are given each day to be kinder, more gentle, more loving, and more patient. For all of this, we are grateful. Amen.
And now we will do our affirmation in faith. I put my gray hymnal down somewhere, so I'm good. It's inside the cover of the gray hymnal. So I actually have it memorized, so I'm good. I'm just letting you know where to look. Yeah. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia, y el servicio es su ofrenda. Esto es nuestro gran pacto, el convivir unidos en paz, el buscar la verdad en amor, y ayudarnos unos a los otros. Gracias. All right. And now you are all invited downstairs to Emerson Hall for coffee and conversation. And to get there, if you are new, you can take the elevator on that side and also follow the crowd down the steps. Or there's the secret stairway if you go out behind the tech guys there and down as well. And also Amber will be there, so you can chat with her more about what her organization does. We have a couple of announcements. I'm going to direct you first to the back of your bulletin. And as you can see, Saturday, June 6th is really busy. And Diane Toigo asked me to highlight the time and date for the Leo De Santo concert because somewhere else the time and date were incorrect. It is Saturday, June 6th, starting at 3 p.m. here in the sanctuary. And there's a what do you call it, sandwich board on the way out as well if you want to take a screenshot of that. Also, Saturday, I have the date for that right.
The 13th?
The 13th. One more thing about June 6th. Dawn would like to remind you that that is the day of the Pride Fest in Lidditz, and we will have a table there, and it's going to be really interesting this year because it's at Rock Lidditz, and there will be 1-hour shifts to man our volunteer table between 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. And she got a few sign-ups on our sign-up genius, but she'd like to have 2 people per hour. Also, you may be curious about how things went on Friday evening. Reverend Elizabeth talked a little bit about the risk assessment, where at the gathering we got to explore, about 25 of us got to explore risk tolerance at UUCL in the light of the times we live in. There was a nice mix of board members, past and present, and new people, and it was very insightful. Margaret Babcock had some interesting comments earlier when I was downstairs. And for those of you who were there, if you can ask as ambassadors for that, because we all got a lot out of it, and you can chat with some of those people. And the next one is coming up on June 13, which is Saturday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., and there'll be a light breakfast if you would like to join us. And for any other future and ongoing happenings at church, do look to our weekly email newsletter, the Love Letter, or our Facebook page and website calendar. And if you need to sign up for the newsletter, go to the website or contact the office. And that is it.
There's pizza in the refrigerator.
There's pizza in the refrigerator.
Leftover. Please, come get pizza.
There are some full ones in boxes. If you're going somewhere and could use it, or please help yourself. Thank you.
Please rise and join us singing our final hymn. It is 124 in your gray hymnal. Sorry, it is 108. Mine is wrong, the board is right. ask you to stay standing and join hands if you're comfortable for the benediction. Dear ones, curiosity is a choice. It is the first stone on the path to building the future we seek, a future guided by our shared values, which are centered in unconditional love. We are surrounded by messaging that the world is falling apart. Please trust me that that is propaganda, and there is always an opportunity to build. But we don't build a future centered in love by ourselves. That can only happen together, only from trusted community. Trust is built in our willingness to know one another and to understand who we are as a community. So as I offer these words of benediction, I pray they foster in you a wondering about where you will build. How will you dare to be curious about those you meet instead of being certain? Where will you allow intrigue to prevail in the uncharted, and how it can strengthen your thread in the web, your part in our interconnectedness? Thank you for choosing to share this hour with us. May this conversation be the pebble that is tumbled over in the river of your mind. May it be the catalyst as you go in peace, planting seeds of love in those you encounter. Blessed be, Ashe, Shalom, and Amen.